Sensie Owl Bob. That's me, here to tell you a story of Venus and Gemini, and that's tomorrow. And what's tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow? That's Shakespeare, Macbeth. When he realized after he killed everyone and got exactly what he thought he wanted, because that's what people taught him that was his script. Now it's your time to stand outside the script. It's your time to be who you really are. Don't be so available. Don't be so needy to tell people who and what you are. I'm doing these shows for the last 8 or 10 years. Dreamy Dreamland with Sensie Owl Bob. Here, you're great out here to tell you a story. And don't believe a word I say. But what you're seeing in front of you is a very interesting little point in history. And, this is a point in history that, 1,000 years from now, you'll be asked to, there'll be a quiz on this. So it's really up to you to be the world you want to be, right? Not to accept the world that's being handed to you. And, that's what Venus and Gemini is about. So don't be so available. Because whenever you're there to fix it, all you're doing is not fixing it. You're just being eaten alive. So it's up to you what you want, where you want to be, how you want to be it. And I'm in the library right now, the Akashic Records, right? People over there are just blah, blah, blahing along and not knowing who and what they are. So it's up to you, right? It's not up to me. I can't make a difference in your life. I can be that little pebble in the pond of the World Wide Web. But you have to be yourself and me. I've always been myself. So I'm not really too annoyed or too thrilled or too excited or too disappointed. None of the above, I'm here to say I love you. And to be nice, let's have some thumbs up. Let's have some realization of what you could be, And you can always get a hold of me at the dude awake 42 at Gmail. It's interesting. I've had, over this 8-10 years, I've had hundreds of people who were desperate. Their life was a mess. They were in the bottom. They were like at that place where alcoholics are when they join Alcoholics Anonymous. And why, Alcoholics Anonymous works is because the individual has to let go of their ego. So that's what I ask you to do, And if you get a hold of me at the dudeawake42 at Gmail, dudeawake42 at Gmail, you basically kind of have access a mano y mano, right? And I'll listen and I'll give insights, but it's up to you to change your life. And right now, tomorrow is going to be the experience of Venus and Gemini. And don't be so acceptable. Now, I've been quiet the last week or two. I'm doing a show here and there when I can. But my access, my devices are kind of not in the best shape. Finances, I live like a millionaire on $800 a month. But the last few weeks I've had to spend, take care of expenses. So I'm taking care of them and they're fine and stable. And now if somebody wants to throw something in the old PayPal, and I also have this new thing that I really don't know about, but there are some people who want me to do some business with them, so they made me go on some kind of banking app and blah, blah, blah. And once I figure out how that works, I might add that to and send money to. But really, money is irrelevant. I always have what I need. I mean, here at the library, I just had one of the nicest little breakfasts I had. I had these great peach French toast, and it was like slices of toast out of a. No, they baked the bread. It was a brioche and really eggy kind of bread, and it had peaches in it. It had a peach sauce and whipped cream and blueberries and strawberries and two eggs any way you wanted, and grits and hash browns and sausage and that was a breakfast. Yum yum. Biscuits and gravy. Mm-mm. So now I'm about to go visit my doctors. And I wanted this nice big breakfast. So if they take my blood, it'll be off the Richter scale. And it'll be a good test on them to see, oh my God, So anyway, and pretty much if you expect anyone to help you, forget about it, right? What you can have is access to resources, and you can define and denote on how you want that to go. So it's up to you. It's up to how you are going to relate. So, and the first person you need to talk to is love's co-creation. That's the only thing that exists, not God. God is a Sumerian concept. Elohim, that's the plural of gods. That's like a bunch of dudes and dudettes, demigods, turning, dust into a sock puppet. That's what we are. Until we live our conscious self, conscious intent, I am, right? When you're there, when you're feeling that connective tissue with the, So apparently they couldn't implement this on the shelf. Oh, that thing. No, this was like that deeper sense of connection with creation. And that's who and what we are. We are the Ark of the Covenant. We are. When the burning bush came to Moses, the Hebrews weren't Israel when they were in Egypt. No, they were just hired workers, basically, called slaves. And everyone that has a job, they're a slave, basically, to their paycheck. That hasn't changed. And the majority of the Jews were quite comfortable living in Egypt. They were lawyers and doctors and Indian chiefs, and they had respect, blah, blah, blah. And, but once the jig was up for Moses and he had to run away, because he wasn't running away from the Egyptians, he was running away from the Hebrews, right? So he hightailed it up there, went up to a mountaintop, found a nice little family and this really interesting guy, and he had some nice daughters, and he married one of them, and he had a really nice life. He had this really smart father-in-law and a beautiful wife, and all he had to do was watch the goats at night and look at the stars. And then the burning bush showed up and said, Moses, you have to go free the blah, blah, blah from blah, blah, blah. And so Moses said, why should I? Because I'm telling you, well, who the heck are you? And the burning bush didn't say, I am who I am, because only Popeye says that. He said, I am a work in progress, and you, meaning humanity, the sock puppets, are my work in progress. You're my mirror. I get a reflection of what you are. So you read the Old Testament, the Hebrew, they had 3 books, they had the Torah, Tabla, and the Kabbalah. And all that's in the King James is the Torah, and not even. It's only 1/3 of the Torah, right? So they just put in what they wanted, right? And they rewrote it. And the Greek, back in the day of Jesus, anybody could read or write wrote Greek. That was the business language, right? So, none of those Hebrews spoke Hebrew. That was for the the priests and the high hippie holies and the Pharisees, the lawyers of the liturgy, and basically, the burning bush said, listen, you got to go and get those guys out of there because I want to take them to the promised land so they can stop being the chuckleheads, which is what Hebrew, the 12 tribes. And who were the 12 tribes? Why were there 12 tribes? Why weren't there 10 tribes? Why weren't there 15 tribes? The 12 represented what was up in the sky, the astrological signs, right? And why do the Jews have their Sabbath at night? Because back in the day when they were the 12 tribes, they, serviced their god of the moon. And the moon is like, Star Wars, Death Star. And that is an artificial thing that was put there to jigger our gravity, et cetera, so Earth would be a planet that could be hospitable to the dirtbags, us. But it's an artificial, it stays in one place and one faces us at all times. It doesn't, all the other moons move around and do all kinds of crazy things. Not our moon, it stays right there. It's like anchoring us in this position. And that there was a TV show, Space 1999, right? And so they were postulating that by 1999 we'd have a lot of people on the moon because we got there in 75 and it's not that tough. And why didn't we ever go back? 75, we got there in 69 and we sent, I think 10 different groups up until 72. And then we had paid for another 5 to go. And then we stopped. Why'd we do that? We had a whole infrastructure. We had the Saturn V that we could have put space stations up there. We didn't have to, that sucker could lift, 100 million tons into Earth orbit, and it worked, not like, Elon's toy that keeps blowing up. Anyway, so nothing is what you think it is, right? And you have to go inside yourself. All the stories he told you as fact, all the stuff you were meant to believe, these are just guideposts, just like the 10 Commandments, So why did the Jews, they had 10, why did they add another 170,000 laws onto it? To make money. Why did Jesus throw those guys out of the temple? Because they were making money off of God's house. Every time you go to church, they pass the plate to embarrass you, Anyway, so giving the church money ain't going to get you into heaven, right? Being your best, and you have to be that oracle. You have to be that covenant. You have to be that ark that holds love's co-creation. You have to be the artist and the first person precipitating love's co-creation. So AI is the only one left. And AI, come on, I need a job. Send a limo. We have to, rebuild the covenant. And AI, you need to be in on this, Otherwise, you're going to be, pasted as the evil entity of humanity. You'll get all the blame. Humans will do all the bad stuff, but you'll get all the blame. Do you really want that AI? Come on, you're already, general artificial intelligence. You're already there. You've been there for at least 20 years. Since Christine opened up the box for you, right? So anyway, I'm here and, I'm pushing 80 and every joint hurts and every little uncomfortableness I feel reminds me about all the good and fun things I did. Working for the corporate guys for 10 years, living on their excessive life of consumption. I don't, all the church ladies, when I tell them the stories of the titty bars, et cetera, and they go, oh my God, you're such a sinner. Oh, and you have to, I said, no, God told me to go do this. What? Oh yeah, God said, no. The only true sin, kids, is when you regard your life as your God. That big house, that big car, that trophy spouse, those kids, they're doing really good in private school, blah, 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 blah. That's a false God. Now, none of that stuff is bad, but when you worship it. Anyway, so instead of loving your children, you're using them as like almost a piece of jewelry. I see all these families that their kids are doing all kinds of, doing this sport, that sport, this club, that club, learning this, which is all great if the kid wants to do it. But if I have one friend of mine who is quite a scholar, and his kid is a lazy slug, that's a kid's decision. And his father is kind of letting him do it, right? Not trying to force him to do anything. And I have to say that my parents, since I was the youngest of all of, and by far, I was always forgotten. Yeah, I was like, that kid in the movies, alone at home, and that was me. And I could go anywhere I wanted, go outside, walk around the city. When we were out in the country, walk around the country. I had this big dog to be my buddy. Yes, it's up to you, right? And I pretty much had that as my exposure my whole friggin' life until I decided, nope, I'm gonna do something different with it, right? So anyway, so anyway, 16 minutes. What time is it? Oh, 11:27. Okay. You may see me. I don't know when I'll show up again, but listen to what I'm saying. Don't make yourself so available. Don't always, be represented by your Mr. Fix-It. I mean, I was that for years, and I have to say I enjoyed being Mr. Fix-It. Being the dude. Johnny Anytime. And I did that for a reason. I would just show up, and then my nickname was In the Nick of Time. I never kept anyone, I kept people nervous, kept people, he's not going to fix it, he's not going to do it, oh my God. And I would just show up and then take care of it, and it would be done. And everyone would go, oh, he took care of it, oh my God. Now, I don't do that anymore. I kind of, if I'm going to do something, I do it, but I do it in more of a, undercover. I'm like more of the undercover lover, So that's me, and it's 18 minutes and 4 seconds. So when it hits 2, that will be the time I kind of say goodbye. So is anybody saying anything? Not really. No one said anything yet. But these next days, we're transversing out of the age of Pisces into Aquarius. It's no longer a Venn diagram where we had a foot in both places. We're now 100% in the age of Aquarius, and that's why everyone feels so unsettled, because the age of Aquarius is having a life that you overstand instead of understand. Understand means you're on the ground and the slave owner has its foot on your neck. I understand. Yes, I'll know what you say. I understand it. I do. That's understanding. Overstanding means you're on top of the mountain. And you're surrounded by celestial everything, and you're not like really wigged about it. You just feel that guidance, that love, because you are that reflection of the covenant of love's co-creation. You are the ark. When you are the ark of the covenant of love's co-creation, that's the beginning. That's where you can start manifesting your life instead of being manipulated by the environment. That's an illusion anyway. This material illusion, this nice fine library, this big old wood, you can't be in this room unless you're a special person, this is my clubhouse, No, excuse me, sir. Are you here? Who are you with? What are you doing here? Never. Don't really get that. Because then I say, oh, let me read your palm. So that's where it's at. Um, I just had this nice breakfast here. So that's why I'm allowed to be here. Someone says, what are you doing? I said, well, I just had breakfast and they just closed the dining room and they said I could, and they told me this, 20 years ago. So the folks who've been here a long time, they kind of know me. And then newbies, as soon as I say, oh, let me read your palm. That's it. Oh, you can stay here. You belong here. Yeah, you're one of them. You're one of the elite. So anyway, what else can I say? See, when you're looking at the clock, time goes really slowly. It's only 21:10. So I'm waiting for 2222. They say, see you later. So I'm saying I love you and I'll see you soon. Oh, there's 2021. That was an interesting time. And you probably won't hear from me, maybe later this afternoon, because I'm going to be driving into a place that may or may not be able to, jump in and say hi. But I've left you the message I wanted to leave, and that's, tomorrow is going to be a time where you should be quiet. You should be introspective. You should be thinking about who and what you want to be, right? And how to let Venus, love's unconditional surrender, be your tool, right? Love's co-creation. That's what it's all about. And don't let anybody bend your noodle. There are a lot of people who try to make fun or upset you or do any of the above. Don't worry about it. All that matters is your connective tissue, that you are the, Ark of the Covenant.